Yep, continue. All right. Okay. Good morning, listeners, and here we are. It's the 3 Feet Radio Show once again, and joining me in the studio is my co-host, Luke Herbert. G'day, Luke.
G'day, Ben, and greetings to our viewers and listeners from the chilly deep south, Ben. It's the time of year where the freeze is outside and in.
Well, it's certainly very cold across the ditch here in Melbourne as well. We're in the midst of another lockdown to do with COVID-19, but hopefully we'll get through that by talking some netball today. And joining us in the studio is Sky Sports commentator Courtney Tairi. Hi, Courtney. How are you going this morning?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's all right, no worries at all. First of all, you're very lucky over there in New Zealand. You have the ANZ Premiership going. What do you make of the season so far?
I've been loving the season. I think everybody's just loving having sport back, first of all, and especially for it to be netball, one of the sports that are up and running. I think the quality of netball has been really great. When we've spoken to the players, they have come out of lockdown really well. They all trained really, really hard, and you can see that. You can see, I think, through their fitness, the physicality, it's like they haven't missed a beat, really, and you can see that, I think, in the results we've been having lately. The Pulse is sitting at the top of the ladder, the Steel sitting at the bottom of the ladder, and the Steel have almost have really taken the games to the Pulse and almost beaten them. And so I think it shows how close the competition is. I mean, the Tactics just beat the Mystics by one goal. Like, it's just very exciting. And I think the quality has been really good considering everything that's happened.
Well, that kind of brings up a question that I don't know if it's counterintuitive or it's maybe this fits in because of the COVID circumstances we've had, but did what amounted to barring the first round of the competition, the extended off-season, do you think that in an unplanned way benefited the players?
Yeah, I do. And, a lot of the players joked about, having pre-season, which actually lasted 8 months, which they weren't happy about. But I think it's really benefited them and benefited all the teams because it's sort of put them, I think, on an even playing field where they knew we were going into lockdown for however long it was, and that they really had to work hard so that literally as soon as the season started, which was quite uncertain, that they were ready to go. And I think that has really showed that, and probably maybe not having that date at the beginning of when it would start, players just were training so that they were ready to go at any moment. And I think you can really see that.
And Courtney, you just mentioned there was a little bit of uncertainty with the start date. Do you think there's also a bit of uncertainty then with there being a different finals format being used in the ANZ Premiership this year? What are your thoughts on it, and can we see it being used again?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, I think. And I know that Netball New Zealand obviously did everything they could to get the competition happening, and they saw that was the best way fit. We even saw it with they've reduced the quarters to 12-minute quarters, which is something that is very, very new for netball. I was like, I've never seen this before. Even at training, you don't really play 12-minute quarters. But I think Netball New Zealand, with the Players Association, they knew they just had to do everything they could to get it up and running. And we've even seen it with all the games being in Auckland to start with, and teams having to all travel to Auckland that live outside Auckland. But with the finals, I think it was interesting, but I guess it's the best way to do it. And it will be really exciting, I believe, having all the teams down there for finals and all playing off against each other, well, in their respective placing. So I think it'll be a great weekend down in Invercargill for finals, to be honest.
Well, if I just put on my local hat for a moment, and I don't think in any kind of objective way, I think it's fantastic.
I agree with you. We all, once we heard all the games are going to be in Auckland, we liked that. But then we also felt for the other parts of the country who wouldn't be able to have home games, and especially the players and the teams having to travel. And especially that Invercargill crowd that everyone just, even when you're not playing for the Steel, playing down there in front of the Invercargill crowd is one of the best in the world, honestly. And so I think it's great to see the finals go there because we know how great the crowd in Invercargill will make it.
Yeah, viewed more objectively, I think it's going to be a bit awkward just because the Steel are going to finish as much as I can wear my one-eyed patch when I'm not trying to be a host on this show, they're going to finish closer to the bottom of the table, I think. It's just one of those seasons. But just switching gears here, do you follow or do you keep up with what's going on in the Suncorp League across in Australia?
Yeah, I do. I love watching, obviously, any netball and sport, but I particularly Suncorp Super Netball, so I'm always watching what goes on there. I think the competition has been great. And then obviously I've played with a lot of the players, been coached by a lot of the coaches. So I love watching them all play or their teams play and seeing how they've progressed. And just also, I think Suncorp was really good in just changing little bits of netball just to make it, I guess, to see how it would go. And so I think it'll be interesting once it starts. I think all eyes will be on Suncorp for that opening round with the 2-point shots and that. So I think, I've always loved watching Suncorp since it started and just seeing netball over in Australia and how all the players and the coaches are going.
Well, we almost can claim you back again here, Court.
Yeah.
Do you obviously have fond memories of your early netball here, and you spent a lot of your time here as a pathway athlete when you were a lot younger?
Yeah, and my family is still in Sydney, and that's where I grew up. Yeah. And it's been tough for me not being able to get home to Sydney to see mum and dad. So yeah, Australia has been a big part of my journey and still is a big part of my journey. Especially just growing up, playing down at the local Penrith netball courts and stuff like that. So definitely, I always say a big part of my netball journey was, all through Australia in the development. And then just even the coaches that have had a major impact on my career, like Julie Fitzgerald, I'm still close with her and her family, and I believe always will be. And so Australia really is, big part of my heart for sure.
And did I see right that Julie Fitzgerald got a Queen's birthday honour or something like that recently?
Yeah, she did, which is amazing. But I think and I was talking to her daughter, like one of the most incredible things about that is she got it for being a coach, yes, but she also got it for being part of the development of young women, which I think is a real credit to her. And I think any player that has had Julie as a coach can credit her to being a big part of them, not as a player, but as a human being. And just, for me, even because she first saw me when I was 14 years old and then was coaching me 10 years later, and then all the way up until I was like 27 or 28. So she was a big part of my life. And so I think even though she is a great coach, which we know, I think one of the best things about her being recognised is that her development of young women in a positive way in this world and in Australia.
And just before I get on to my question, just staying with her, I noticed when she was coaching the Magic back in the old ANZ Championship days, I thought she did a very good job with that team. She took them to the finals, and considering we didn't have the Bico League yet, I think that was I don't want to be careful how I say this, but not an accomplishment, but I thought it was, a very good coaching job. And just speaking of journeys, now player journeys, do you think this year's Bico League getting cancelled, how will that affect player development in New Zealand? Because it's got to have a knock-on effect.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And Eunice has also been cancelled, but obviously we understand why these things have happened just with this year. But it is a shame for these developing players. And even if we look at the ANZ Premiership this year, we've seen Maddie Gordon, who's come through the Becco system. She's been an MVP. She's been outstanding this season. Saviour Tui for the Mystics. So we've seen even Kimi Ortapoi. I mean, the fact that she's gone through the system in ANZ, even went over and did a stint with Collingwood Magpies. So this Bico system, I think, has been great for the development of our younger players. The fact that they even, some games would play before ANZ Premiership. So just even the fact that they get to be in that environment, and then also being on Sky Sport as well. So there's a lot of eyes that get to view these young players, coaches, whoever it may be. So I think it is a shame that we don't have Becco this year, even though we understand why, but I think it's been great in the development of these young players. Even when I would go for Sky Sport and do the secondary schools competition, then you see a player like Taylor Earl be the MVP at secondary schools, go through the Becco system, and now she's just exploded last year and this year on the ANZ court. And she's owning that centre bib for the Mystics. So I think it is, like you said, it's a shame we don't have the Becco system this year, but hopefully next year we can get it all back up and running.
And you spoke about Sky Sports. What are the current arrangements for the Sky commentary team factoring in COVID-19? And what were they prior to the pandemic? Because I know from the little bit I've seen, because here in Australia, we don't usually get those games. It's done on a city by city basis. You've got sort of different commentary teams in different cities.
Yeah, we do. So Sky has been really, really good throughout the whole process. They obviously understand the importance of getting sport back up, not just for the players, but I think for the country as a whole and for everyone out there. And so they were really good throughout the whole process. But, we used to travel all the time, go to all the games, everything like that, even, be in the office prepping all week. But then obviously things have changed. So now with it just being based in Auckland for the ANZ Premiership, we're sticking to just our solid Auckland commentary team, so no one has to travel. Even it's the same with like our crew in regards to cameramen and all that. So it's all just keeping it really confined, along with Netball New Zealand, who've been great. We're all playing at the one centre at the moment. And then even we have to do the ID to tag in and out and all that kind of stuff. So they've taken all the right protocols, I believe, to make everyone feel safe and to do everything right and by the book. And then in the last couple of rounds, we do start to get to travel, but again, we're going to keep to, using our experts in those areas of the country. So there's not too much traveling, but then with how we are in New Zealand, obviously we are able to travel. So at this point in time, very excited. So most of us will be heading down for the big finals weekend as well, which will be fantastic. And just, I think, to just add that excitement to the whole weekend, which will be great.
And for the benefit of people that don't live in Auckland and have only seen the Auckland Netball Centre on the Sky screens, what can you tell us a little bit about that venue? Because it's not usually hosting top-level games.
No, it's not. So it's usually used for Auckland Netball Centre, for clubs, prems, for schools. But honestly, what they've done with the facility has been amazing. Even our Monster Vision in the big screens that they've done everything they can to turn it into a top-class facility for these first few weeks of the competition. I think it's been brilliant. But you're right, it's not usually used for that, but I think they've done a fantastic job at using it and just using one side of the stand to make sure that we could get fans in. It's been great. And then also outside on the net, there's like almost 30 or 40 netball courts outside. So it's actually great because, now that we've got sports started back up, on a Saturday, you've got all netball being played outside, and then families can, buy a ticket in the afternoon and come inside and watch, some of their favorite teams play. And it's great having all the teams there across the weekend. So families, families that are from down south can go in and support the Steel.
It almost reminds me of being here in Melbourne with the State Netball and Hockey Centre, or almost like what used to be called Etsa Park in Adelaide. It's a very similar setup, Courtney.
Yeah, it is. It's very similar. Exactly right. I've played there, and it is. You're right. Very similar. And we don't usually see some of those used for, the big games, but I think it does show as well that, you can actually do it there if need be. And, it's great. And I've found that just by it being in a netball hub within itself, it's been great because you've got, these young aspiring netballers out on the courts, but they see these, the ANZ superstars rock up. They get to, talk to them, just see them, and then go and support them inside, and vice versa. Some of the girls, you'll see them just, outside watching some of the Saturday netball, which I think is great, just to build that relationship. And so it's great for these younger players to see their idols, or see like, oh, that's what I can aspire to be if I work hard. And they can see, I guess, these ANZ players living their dreams.
And I think now we're going to, at least for this next question, try and cross borders, which no one's actually doing at the moment, or international borders. What do you see happening with international netball? Because it's kind of left out in the open a bit.
It is. So we've all had our fingers crossed, and I've talked to Dame Nolene Total, and obviously everyone is keen for that Trans-Tasman bubble to hopefully open so that we could even get a consolation cup underway between Australia and New Zealand. But obviously with the way things rapidly change, we're not too sure about where that sits at the moment, because they were hoping, September, October, but at this point, who knows. But we're also very keen, Netball New Zealand, Dame Nolene Todua, to get something like the Cadbury Series, which we had last year before the Silver Ferns went over to the World Cup. So to have it on Sky Sport where the Silver Ferns can play against hopefully the New Zealand men's team, because majority of them are here, some are in Australia, so that'll be unfortunate if they can't come, but the men will still be able to have a team. We'll have the New Zealand A's, and then also last year we had the ANZ superstar team as well. So I think those plans are starting to be in the works for once ANZ finishes, so that there will be something for the Silver Ferns, and then for, I guess, a bit of international flair until hopefully we can get the Constellation Cup to happen.
Just how big was having the men's team involved last year, Courtney? You got a tiny little bit of media coverage over here in Aussie, and it looked like it was huge over there. Playing the Silver Ferns.
Yeah, it was. It was huge. And I think not many people know, but even when you play, say like I played for Magic, we would always get the men's team to come in for us to play against and a training run in preparation, or even if we knew we were up against the Steel and you had someone like Janelle Fowler-Reid, who obviously is so tall. So we'd get one of the taller men's players, just one of them to come in to sort of be that tall shooter for our defence to play against. So I think a lot of people maybe didn't realise that the men's have contributed so much to the women's game and have for years, even from, since I started at the Swifts, even back then we were playing the men, and that was like, almost 10 years ago. So they really contributed to the growth of the women's game, and they always put up a hard competition for us, and that's why all the teams use the men to play against, because they're so skilled, they're so fast, they jump a lot higher, so it really takes you to that next level. And we saw that with the Cadbury Series, that the men actually beat the Ferns, and people couldn't believe it, but that's why we use them, and also that shows how great the men are. And so it was great for them to get all the coverage, and I also think get the acknowledgement for people to realise how much they have contributed to making netball grow, especially for us, for professionals and for the international teams. So yeah, they got a lot of coverage here. They loved it. We loved it for them. And I think it's helped grow that bond as well between the women's and the men's teams, and just for people to acknowledge, I think, the men, because even this year the men were meant to have a Netball World Cup in October, and that's obviously been cancelled, but not many people knew about that kind of stuff. So I think it's great that netball is not just a women's game, and even with you guys, it's not just women who report on it, it's not just women who love it, it's for everyone, families, men, everyone. So I think that was a real great, I guess, learning curve for everyone to see that netball is such an inclusive sport.
And you've just touched on something that's really annoyed me over the years, to be honest. Now, I don't normally mention this on the air, but I think I can because of the context of the subject. And I'd go over the show's Twitter feed, and there'd be people that I know they mean well, but referring to netball as a woman's sport. And I'm sitting there reading this, I'm like, well, to me, it's just a sport. I mean, I get that it's majority women fans, majority women play it, but then you can turn that argument around and say that until recent years, rugby or even Aussie rules, Australian football in Australia has had the majority of men playing. So, I just find that to be, I don't know, it's sort of an artificial distinction. But moving along, this is a sort of changing gears, an unusual question, that given the Blendlands and AFL made Victoria, Australian rules made Victoria, and I'm an Australian rules football fan because of my own Australian heritage. Perth was where I spent my childhood. But what can you tell us about the Kiwi League Show that you co-host?
Oh, yeah. So switching gears now, I love it. So I love all sport, but growing up in Sydney, I grew up just watching rugby league. So I have just a passion I grew up watching AFL as well, but league was predominantly what was watched in my house. My dad played, not professionally or anything, but just loved league. And then also growing up, in Penrith, which is such a sporting area, you know, you go to play netball in the morning, and then we'd all go over to the league fields and just support, you know, the clubs with the rugby league. So I've grown up around it, and then that really helped me once I started doing stuff for Sky Sport, because obviously in New Zealand rugby is the dominant sport here. And then they were like, oh, you know, rugby league. And to be fair, it was a little bit unusual that I think a female loved and knew so much about rugby league, because over here a lot of it is rugby. And so Sky Sport, I'm thankful they kind of tapped in on that with me. And then so I've been doing the Kiwi League Show with Monty Beetham for the last 2 years, and then this year it was with Louis Brown. And the great thing is, obviously, we only have the Warriors League team in New Zealand playing in the NRL, but there are so many Kiwi players in the NRL, and so we wanted to really highlight that, not just make it a show on the Warriors, but make it a sport league show on a Thursday night, highlighting, you know, the Kiwi players that play for the Melbourne Storm, that play for the Canberra Raiders. Because to be fair, and I understand completely, in Australia with Channel 9 and Fox, a lot of it, they don't get a lot of recognition because, you know, a lot of it goes to a lot of the Australian superstars, which is, you know, fair enough. And so for us, we were like, well, we've got just as many superstars that we can highlight, and even over in the Super League in the UK. So we have a show on Thursday nights, just really highlighting the great Kiwi League players that we have in the NRL and around the world. And it's really good. Everyone loves it, because even, you know, we get the players in to the studio or whatever it may be. In COVID, it was over Zoom and whatnot, but it just gives people access to these Kiwi players that might just go, I guess, not under the radar, but probably don't get as much recognition in Australia because they are Kiwi. So it's just highlighting them and supporting Kiwi players in the NRL and also in the Super League.
And you said growing up in Sydney, you loved your sport, and obviously with your Islander blood too. Islanders are a big part of the NRL community, and it must have been pretty cool. I'm not sure if you did, but you probably would know her. In Joe Sutton, her brother John ended up playing NRL, for example. So it must have been pretty cool when you were younger, saying, I play, one of my teammates' brothers plays NRL. Like, that would have been pretty cool. John would have just been making his way in his career back in those days with the Rabbitohs, I think.
Yes, that's correct. You're 100% correct. And so I knew Joe from when I was young as well. And then you're right. So it was just, I guess, growing up, seeing these players and seeing these people that you know, or that you know their families achieve their dreams, and then getting to showcase it and getting to just show everybody, and, you know, even just telling little tidbits about, you know, people just see them on the screen and doing these things, but you have these little stories about them growing up, or just about what beautiful family men they are, just stuff that, you know, some people don't know. And just, you know, knowing that from when they were a young age, they always wanted to play for the Bunnies or whatever it may have been. And getting to share that with people, I think, was a really special part about what we all do.
And just a brief question for those who are uninitiated into the NRL, and probably including myself, but the sense I generally get from Australian sporting leagues is, do you think the NRL, like the AFL, it's driven by tribalism? Because you're just mentioning there how kids fulfill their dreams of playing for a certain team. You know, I mean, the AFL even goes as far as a father-son pick for their draft to keep up the heritage of clubs and players. So is that largely what drives the competition as well, that kind of that next door suburb next to each other, that at least when they take to the field, they hate each other's guts for the 80 minutes, however long the game goes for? Yeah,
the rivalry. There's so many rivalries in the NRL that people just love, that go back, oh God, years and years now, which I think really does, you're right, make the game. And when league isn't the same like the AFL in regards to the draft, and you know, if a father's played there, a son will play for that club. It's not like that in that regards, but in regards to just that rivalry, and then, you know, the passion, and also, I don't want to say the hate, but just those feelings that clubs have towards each other. But it makes it that much more special, I think. And everyone knows at the end of the day that we are all lovers of the same sport, and it's not too serious in regards to you know, clubs hating each other in that, but it really does add to that that rivalry and just the passion. I think you can see it with the fans and with the players even.
And we see also there's more and more female involvement in league now too. You've got Ruan Sims on Fox Sports, who actually Ashton Sims' sister, but she's not just that. She's a very accomplished player in her own right. And then we've also got Belinda Sharp, the referee too. It's great to see some very talented females coming through, obviously like with Ruan in commentary and Belinda is in refereeing.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. And we also have the NRLW, so the women's comp, which
which Ruan I think played. Ruan played for the Roosters early on.
She played for the Roosters, and that's been great as well because, you know, growing up, how we spoke about netball being mainly women's sport, it was vice versa, I guess, with league and all that, and even the AFL. And we see netball players now, Shani Layton, Ash Brazel playing in the women's AFL. So it's great to see, I think, and with the NRL, it's so fantastic to see. You know, I know players that play for the Warriors women's team who said they were able to play rugby league up until they were 14, and then they just had to stop because there was nothing left for them to do. And so now with it coming back, you know, they still always had that passion. There was just never a pathway for them, but now there is, and now they can play on the main stage. And also, you're right with Ruan, like imagine her growing up around her brothers. Obviously she's so skilled, but she has that knowledge of the game as well. And so it's great to see her being part of commentary teams because she's got that knowledge, but also a different perspective, I believe, and a different delivery to them what a male can offer as well. So I think it's great to have both sides and both perspectives.
And obviously having Belinda too refereeing, it sort of gives hope probably, I reckon, to young girls that may not have the physique to play. They think, I can do, if I work hard enough and focus enough, I can be a first grade referee like what Belinda's doing, because she started as a touchy and now she's a central referee.
Correct. And you know what? I get so excited when I see what games she's on. And even when I go out for the league show with local stuff, because you're right, there was never sort of, I guess, that pathway, or people weren't able, I guess, for females in those roles weren't able to see that they can do this. And then for her to be the first one, or one of the first, and people to see that weekly, week in, week out. And I think also to see that a female can do it, but also that all the players, she's so good at what she does, but also for the players, she's got the respect of the players. And I think that even, you know, it's great for young girls to see that they can get there, but I think it's also great for young males to see that, you know what, if we do have a female referee, they can do it and they will do it right. So I think it's great for both sides to be able to see that.
All right, Courtney, thanks very much for joining us today. It's been great to catch up. It's been a very long time between drinks, but always good to chat.
It has. Thank you so much. This was great. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.